Sunday, September 23rd, 2018, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. The mission of this channel, I've said many times before, is to expose the fraudulent fiat money banking system that we have, not only in the UK, but in the US and all over the world. I did a live stream this morning, earlier on, over an hour, and I wasn't going to make a video until tomorrow, but that's how things go. My wife went to pick up my mother-in-law for lunch, and my mother-in-law, she buys the Daily Mail, so she brought the mail on Sunday, and she sat down in the living room and she was reading an article, and it says, "You fraudsters, bank boss accuses huge numbers of Britons of making dishonest PPI claims as payout figure hits £30 billion. And we were talking about it, and I said to her, well, that's the pot calling the kettle black, right? And I had to make a video about this. I found the article online. It's on the Mail on Sunday, and it's just amazing, you know, what this guy is saying. So I'll read a little bit about it. And we need to expose these bankers and the system. And maybe some people have made fraudulent claims, but the biggest fraud, of course, is the City of London right now as it operates. Many of you probably have seen a documentary, which I spoke about in April in one of my videos called The Spider's Web, of how business is conducted in the City of London, how most of the business is conducted from London, but legally it's offshore, and guys like Mr. McFarlane, who's the chairman of Barclays, they siphon all their profits offshore. They avoid or evade billions of pounds in taxes, and they deal for crooks, to be honest, because a lot of the money offshore, not all of it, of course, a lot of the offshore money is put there by shady characters, by arms dealers, drug dealers, and the City of London thrives from that. And Spiderweb also talks about how all the ex-British Empire dependencies, which are these offshore tax havens like Turks and Caicos, Gibraltar, even Cyprus, they make up almost like 40% of all the offshore funds in the world. So I had to make a video about this to explain to people. I know many of my viewers already know this, but explain how our system works and how fraudulent it is. First of all, I'll go through this article. So it says, Barclays chairman said it was inconceivable all PPI claims were legitimate. And he might be right about that. John McFarlane, 71, said customers made an avalanche of dishonest claims. He accused the government of being complicit in the decline of the City of London. Well, that's another strange comment, because if it wasn't for the government and us, the taxpayer, Mr. McFarlane, you wouldn't have a job now because we bailed you out in 2008. I'm getting a little angry, but it needs to be said as it is. This guy is a complete muppet, in my opinion, and he needs to shut up. Anyway, he goes on to say, the rush to claim PPI compensation has turned huge numbers of Britons into fraudsters, one of the country's most senior bankers claims today. So we've joined your club, right, Mr. McFarlane? Because the biggest fraudsters are the bankers, as the banks work right now. And am I saying all bankers are fraudsters? All people who work in banks are fraudsters? No, but the system under which the banks operate is fraudulent. And he goes on to say, in an extraordinary broadside, Barclays chairman John McFarlane said customers had made an avalanche of dishonest claims for missold payment protection insurance. This is similar to what Wells Fargo's been doing, and opening fake accounts. In the UK, these claims have been going on for years because the banks have been screwing the consumer for years. Now what I can explain to you how our monetary system works. And you can make up your mind whether Mr. McFarlane and his brethren in the city, the banks, even the Bank of England, are fraudulent or not, and the monetary system that we have. Well, first of all, I'm going to take out a Bank of England note, which is supposed to be, above board, not fraudulent, nor anything. Well, it's gotten a bit smaller now, but you can barely see it, but below where the header of Bank of England, it says, "I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £5. You've probably seen that before down here. It's a lot smaller now with these newer notes. They're a lot smaller. But back before World War I, that was a promise to pay in specie or gold. Value, gold, right? But nowadays, that's a promise to pay nothing. So that's a fraudulent banknote. And here we have the chairman of Barclays saying that the British public are fraudsters. I'm sorry, you are the biggest fraudsters. The other thing that banks do is, how do they create the money? Do you think that Mr. Smith puts £1,000 at Barclays and then Mr. Wilson comes and says, "I want to borrow £1,000"? Do you think they take that £1,000 from Mr. Smith and lend it to Mr. Wilson? No, they don't. They will lend Mr. Wilson like £10,000 on that £1,000. So they create £9,000 out of thin air. It's just a book entry, or they type it on a keyboard. Can we do that? Isn't that fraudulent, creating value out of thin air? That's totally fraudulent. So here we have this guy, John McFarlane, the chairman of Barclays, saying that the British public fraudulent. Maybe some people are, but you are the biggest fraud, Mr. McFarlane. Your banking system, your bank, the Bank of England, the currency, need to explain to the people what it really is. So what else? Well, he said that Barclays, the government is putting the City of London in danger. Well, it's been the same government that has supported the bank, the City of London. It was the government who bailed out the banks in 2007, 8, and 9. And apart from that, Mr. McFarlane, it's been the bank, that bailout was only possible because they created a huge amount of national debt so they could lend you the money. And that debt, believe it or not, Mr. McFarlane, is paid off by us, the taxpayer, not by you. What you're doing now with that debt, Mr. McFarlane, is actually because that debt has become your asset, has become the money in your bank, and you're taking that, you're hypothecating it, or like lending 10 times that amount back to the taxpayer at interest. So that's the biggest fraud, not some people putting on fraudulent claims. Maybe there are, but you are the biggest fraud, the fiat money banking system. And I just wanted to let people know that this guy is a complete fraud, and so is the system. So if this really upsets you, this kind of story, please make sure you share this video. This is what I'm here for. This is my mission, to try to educate people on the fraudulent nature of our monetary system. And why is it fraudulent? Well, the underlying reason why it's fraudulent is that people like Mr. McFarlane can just lend you money that doesn't exist. And that's what it's all about. So the pot calling the kettle black. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share it far and wide, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Make sure you click on the little bell to notify you of my videos. I've heard also that YouTube is taking notifications off, so make sure that the notification's still there. And you can also follow me on DTube, Steemit, BitTube, and on Twitter. I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.